Happy Friday, soulmates. We have so much to share with you on this January 13th. Happy Founders Day to the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. We are honored to stand behind this desk, take each and every one of you on a journey across Black America and the stories that impact our people.
We're going to bring you our news, our views, and our voice. So let's tap into today's top headline. A soldier assigned to Fort Rucker in Alabama is in police custody after brutally killing a fellow soldier. Now, according to a statement from the Army, 21-year-old Private Abdul N. Latifu of the Bronx died from injuries sustained in the attack. Both soldiers were students in advanced individual training. Sources say the attacker used an Army-issued tool, a small steel folding shovel, in that assault. The alleged suspect has not yet been identified by officials, but they say there's no indication the incident was a hate crime. The attack is now under investigation.
In Springfield, Illinois, 2 paramedics are being charged with first-degree murder after not properly restraining a Black patient. Peggy Finley and Peter Cadigan are both charged in the murder of 35-year-old Earl Moore Jr. Reports detail that officers were called to the scene where a family member claimed that Earl Moore Jr. was having a hallucinatory episode. Moore said he saw multiple people with guns inside his home. Police arrived on the scene and requested medical assistance for Moore, but assistance was far from what was given. Take a look.
Earl, sit up. Sit up.
Come on, Earl, let's
Sit up.
my man.
What happened, stupid?
Stop.
Sit up. Sit up now. I am not playing with you tonight. Sit up. What is your birthday?
In a press conference held on Tuesday, local NAACP chapter president Teresa Haley said, quote, "They didn't show any compassion whatsoever." Both EMTs were arrested on Monday and are being held on $1 million bond.
And a follow-up to a story you may be familiar with. 5 officers charged in connection to a man becoming paralyzed while in their custody have pled not guilty to those charges. They're accused of brutally mistreating Randy Cox as he was headed to a New Haven police station for processing when the driver of the van had to brake hard to avoid a crash, sending Cox head first into the wall of that van. Officers then dragged him from the van, placing him in a holding cell until he was taken to a hospital. Cox can be heard saying that he couldn't move. He is now suing the officers and the city for $100 million for negligence, excessive use of force, failing to provide immediate medical care, assault, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, among other claims. Now, the criminal charges against Cox that led to that arrest have been dropped. Cox is now paralyzed from the neck down, and that impact, Nicordelai, in that van was so hard that it caused a cervical spine injury. And like I reported, he is now permanently paralyzed from the neck down. So I feel like, you know, he can never get that life back. And if $100 million is what he is asking for, suing for, and if in fact what he gets, it will never be enough to, get back the life that he had as far as the use of his arms and his legs. Just a terrible story.
It's absolutely terrible, and it reminds me a lot of, remember the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore, where he was in police custody and he went into the paddy wagon being able to, fully use his arms and walk and all of that. And by the time he left the paddy wagon, he had some severe injuries very similar to this. And, just going back to the story in Illinois as well, I think the NAACP chapter president has it right. They didn't show any compassion. And I think we want to be careful that, this sort of deficit of compassion in the world doesn't continue to grow. When EMT officers, are called to the scene, people are in a very vulnerable state, right? And, we don't want folks to have a sense of distrust not just for law enforcement, but for also EMTs. And so it's something that we'll continue to keep our eye on.
It is, and whether it was, frustration or burnout with the EMTs, or a matter of, in crisis or sick while being black, I'm definitely hoping they'll get to the bottom of that case. I mean, when you read some of the description of actually what happened, him being placed face down on a gurney, it was just, listen, I just hope they get to the bottom of this case and we find out what really happened. And if those EMTs need to not be EMTs anymore, then that be the case.
That's right.
It's just horrible.
That's right. Well, this week, Vice President Kamala Harris hosted dozens of environmental leaders at the White House in hopes of making a greener country. The administration wants to cut greenhouse emissions by at least 50% by the end of the decade. The meeting comes as the Biden administration enters a new phase of implementing major clean energy and climate provisions. However, nonpartisan research organization, the Radium Group, released a report early this week explaining that even this aggressive action on climate may not be enough to meet the goals as greenhouse emissions from the U.S. increased for the second time in 2 years.
And after much controversy, Houston ISD says the principal of Jack Yates High School will not be terminated, and additionally never wanted her terminated. Principal Tiffany Guillory was relieved of her duties, with speculation the removal could have to do with the school's college and career readiness numbers being low, but there hasn't been much clarity on that, as the reason for the removal remains unknown. Guillory hasn't responded to a request for a statement. Alumni from the school came out to show their support for her during the school's first board meeting of the year. According to reports, a number of students are even upset that their leader, the woman they respect and look up to, may not be there when they finish their high school journey.
A Missouri City police officer running for Houston mayor is charged with assaulting her fiance. Now she's sharing her side of the story. Fox's Jonathan Martin sat down with Robin Williams and says she's innocent.
Here I am, I'm fighting for my livelihood, I'm fighting for my life, I'm fighting for my mental health, and I'm fighting for Houston. I'm not going to drop out of the race. I'm not going to give up.
Just hours after appearing before a judge, Missouri City police officer Robin Williams, who is also running to be Houston's mayor, sat down exclusively with me to talk about the felony assault charge she's facing, accused of attacking her fiancé on New Year's Eve.
As a police officer, I know all the time that accusations are made. It's not uncommon for someone to make false allegations.
But why would your fiance, if you said you weren't fighting, why would he call the police and say that you hit him with a baton, used your taser, punched him in the mouth, if none of it was true? What would be the cause for that?
Again, I'm not him, but I do know that I did not do what he's accusing me of doing. December 31st, I did not strike him. It was physically impossible.
Hours before the alleged assault, Williams says she dislocated her left shoulder on duty after falling during a SWAT standoff, and says it would have been impossible to attack her fiancé, although he reported being injured.
And this is my dominant hand. In order for me to come after you, I would have to have both hands available, or my dominant hand.
Missouri City police records show Williams did discharge her taser at some point recently and never reported it. Now out on bond, Williams for now can't have contact with her fiancé.
Your fiancé has told investigators that you've been violent in the past, even dating back to August. So are you saying you've never been violent in this relationship?
No, I've never been violent, and when I'm able to tell the full story, you'll see that I've been a victim in a lot of this.
The judge has ordered her to have no contact with the boyfriend, and she's not allowed to have a firearm. It's unclear if she will continue her run for Houston mayor.
Yikes. He say, she say. I think she's right. You're going to have to wait until she can fully tell her story, maybe until the fiancé can fully tell his story. And then, you know, as inquiring minds would probably want to know, you're probably going to have to come up with your own conclusion as to who to believe. Right now, it's kind of like, And then in that piece, you really didn't hear from the other side. He's probably just going to keep his mouth shut, as probably she should have. But just, you know, yikes.
I mean, it begs the question that if you're running to be the next mayor of Houston, Texas, how can you focus on families in Houston when you have so much happening in your own family? I think that is, just a very obvious question. And so,
which is probably why he's keeping his mouth shut, hasn't said too much.
Or maybe there's more to say, who knows? But bottom line, I think it's pulling focus from her race for mayor. And if they don't clear this up sooner than later, I'm not sure if that race is going to be too successful.
All right, here we go with the conversation again. We just talked about this yesterday, as Kansas City is the latest to join the increasing number of cities across the country committed to looking at providing reparations to Black residents. Kansas City Council members voted this week to establish a committee to study reparations. The ordinance gives the city 90 days to form a commission called the Mayor's Commission on Reparations that will go on to advise the city about possible future reparations. Now, the 13-person commission has not yet been chosen.
In Texas, a judge has ordered a landlord to pay up to the tune of over $100,000 for discriminating against Black female tenants. Agent and owner Quang Dang Tran now has to pay $140,649 in damages, penalties, as well as attending trainings and adoption of non-discrimination policies. This all comes after reports detail that the landlord told a Black renter she could not view an affordable unit or live there because she was Black, which is in direct violation of the Fair Housing Act. HUD, which in June 2019 filed a discrimination charge, says it will continue to hold accountable those who practice these violations.
Okay, more of the same when it comes to this story, as City National Bank has agreed to commit more than $31 million to boost lending to Black and Hispanic home buyers in the LA area. It's the largest settlement over illegal redlining. Now, this comes after the Justice Department accused it of discrimination by refusing to underwrite mortgages in predominantly Black and Latino communities. City National is the latest bank in the past several years that has avoided to lend to racial and ethnic minorities. The Justice Department also claims that the bank was so reluctant to operate in LA County, areas that they only opened one branch in the past 20 years.
In Georgia, after weeks of warning that the city of Atlanta will be getting tough on delinquent accounts, not a single Atlanta homeowner has seen their water shut off for failure to pay. Fox's Morse Diggs has the very latest.
Even with a flurry of customers coming down to City Hall to make arrangements for their water bill, the number still stands at more than 21,000 delinquent accounts. How did they get that way? Well, the two mayors before Mayor Dickens didn't do any residential shutoffs over a period of 12 years. Delinquent business customers see their taps cut if they do not pay up. But the real money owed to Atlanta, tens of millions, is from overdue residential accounts. The water chief, Makita Browning, got some looks of skepticism from council because they heard her promise to get tough with homeowners and begin enforcement once the calendar rolled to January.
Some of the shutoffs we're going to start first of the year. Where are we with that? Because we can only continue to be a charity for so long.
We had to hit a little bit of a pause because of the influx of the 500 that came into the float program the last 2 weeks of December. So we needed to recalibrate the list.
Soon it will happen, according to the water office. Fox 5 returned there today to get an update. Paying customers were not happy to hear that more than 21,000 ratepayers remain on the failure to pay shutoff list. You understand that water is like a utility, right?
Whatever they use, they need to pay for it.
The unofficial free water abuse practice has gone on so long, there are millions Atlanta will have to write off as simply uncollectible.
9 and 9.2.
9.5 and 9.2. And these are accounts that are statutorily past the point that we can do anything.
So council members can express frustration over the pace of the enforcement on these overdue water accounts, but really that's all they can do. It is up to Mayor Dickens and his water commissioner to accelerate the activity. From downtown Atlanta, I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.
watershed officials estimate that the number to be around $18 million. Our thanks to Morse Diggs for that report. 21,000 ratepayers not paying, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is, and we know that, in order to use utilities, you have to pay for them. At this point, whose fault is it really? I know if look, I'm just putting myself in their shoes. If I owed and nobody was saying anything, I can see how people would continue on and not really pay too much attention to, that bill. But I'm like, where they do that at? Because let me tell you, we still own a home here in Detroit, our parents' home. And, I know with the history of the water department here and all the issues, they will cut you off with no problems. And we're living in the midst of the Great Lakes. So I'm just really surprised that Atlanta officials have let it go on for so long, and to the point now where they're not going to be able to recoup any of those monies owed. But for the residents who owe, I'm sure they're going to stay a bit quiet. For those 500 who've gone in and say, yes, I owe and I want to work out a plan, I hope it works out for them.
Yeah, and I think part of what people forget is that, those dollars go back into the general fund and they allow for the city of Atlanta to invest in other programs, right? And so when people don't pay their water bill, it makes it hard for the city to invest in programs that the city says that they want, that voters say that they want. And so, 21,000 delinquent accounts, hopefully they're able to put a dent in that. But the fact that not one, but two mayors over the course of two mayorships, they haven't been able to figure this out. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's about to be figured out now.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, in your business report, you could soon be seeing some relief from the high food prices. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics says grocery prices increasing only 0.2% in December. That makes it the smallest monthly increase since March 2021. But overall, food prices still went up about 12% compared to last year. Egg prices are up about 60% from a year ago, while the cost of butter up more than 35%.
All right, maybe something for next year's Christmas list or maybe a birthday coming up. She's bigger and 2 inches taller compared to the traditional Barbie, and she has some color. The dolls manufacturer, Mattel, was inspired by parents to create a larger version. They say parents wanted to buy a Barbie until their kids' hand motor skills increased. My first Barbie will come in 4 different skin tones and easy to dress Velcro clothes made especially for smaller hands. And I get it, because the baby dolls come a little bit bigger, maybe easier to grab. I love the fact that Mattel is continuing with their need or quest to involve us with the 4 different skin tones. And I think, possibly it'd become a hot item. Barbie has been hot for years on top of years. Barbie might be about 50, 70 years old.
Barbie is definitely a member of AARP.
I know, it's good. So am I. It's good to see that they continue to reimagine and, for new generations and for generations to come.
I think you're right. And it's so good to see a company and a toy that really is a part of Americana, to see it evolve over the years. I was in the grocery store a couple days ago, and I saw the different colored Band-Aids, right? The multiple tones, right? And I just thought to myself, it is a new day.
Keep it coming.
We love it.
Gotta keep it coming.
We love to see it. Still ahead, working only 4 days out of the week. That's what one country's trying to enforce for workers.
Ooh, we'll tell you where and why they're looking for an earlier weekend when we return. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. Give me my passport.